Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and thanks for checking us out again. This video is all about the mini Yoyo Sportster, which you will have seen the maiden flight of by now. Very pleased with it, I am too. Somebody commented they don't particularly care for profile fuselages. That's a profile fuselage in case you wasn't sure. And so I thought I would design a built-up fuselage version and see how we get on. And this one I thought I might make 2S as opposed to a 1S battery and use an old UMX 150 BL motor. Anyway, so this one I thought I'd make a 2S battery just to carry the extra weight, a slightly bigger motor, but I'm also going to make it into a biplane. But it's going to be both. It's going to be top wing, cabanes and outer struts are going to be removable just to leave a low wing Sportster with a wider fuselage, built up fuselage. So I've been drawing it up on QCAD, my CAD software, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, I've lightened the rear of the fuselage quite a bit, well, as much as I can, and drawn up some formers. I've also made the tailplane and fin slightly bigger area to compensate for the second wing, and I also plan to make the lower wing about 5 centimeters shorter each side, because it just looks nicer. And I'm also not having any tip dihedral on the lower wing, it's just going to be straight. So as a monoplane it's going to look a little bit different to this one, but not a lot. Hopefully it'll still turn okay without the tip dihedral. It should do, and it'll be 2S. So let's get on with the build, and I'm going to use the laser to cut out the parts, which I'll do a bit of filming of, and you can see how I get on with that. So thanks guys, and let's crack on with the build. It should look good at the end, I hope. Cheers. This has taken me quite a long time to figure it all out on the screen on the CAD software, and transfer it to Lightburn, but it's going to be super accurate, number one, and number two is I can replicate it with the touch of a button now. Working out the cut on this is a little bit of experience, but once you get the hang of it, I can control the speed of the laser, the power of the laser, and how many times it actually makes the cut. So juggling those three, depending on what wood, this is 1/16 medium balsa. Depending on the wood, you might vary that slightly, but it's a good idea to do a test, which I have done actually. Isn't that a joy to witness, isn't it? Let's see. That's the rear half of the fuselage. Lightening holes, hopefully not weakening holes. It should be okay with a former between each one. We'll find out soon enough. That's the slot for the tailplane, and just squeeze this shape onto this piece of wood, I think. It's interesting, the laser is purple, but on the camera it's this light green colour. Excuse my slightly gruff voice, I've got a bit of a cold. Look at that. One fuselage side. I had to do it in two halves, you see, to get it on the laser. And that will fit on there like that. That will glue on there. Should be a perfect fit. There we go. Glue that on. And we got one fuselage side. Woohoo! Okay, so there we are guys, there's the components cut out. Just got to glue it all together now and we'll see what we got. Yeah, there we are. From screen to balsa. I think I'll put a couple of pins in just to hold this. Maybe maybe one top and bottom, like that, one at the front. This is all end grain here, so I'm just going to put some glue on like that, just to soak up the end grain. Somebody asked me the other day, why do I do that? Well, it's end grain, so the glue gets sucked into the grain instead of staying on the joint, and all that happens is you end up with a dry joint. So it really is worth putting on 2 coats, 2 applications I should say. That's lovely, look at that. Right, that'll go in there. It's the cockpit floor. Put it there, and that'll go. Yeah, like that. So we'll let that set and come back to it in a little while. Okay guys, I've started to join the fuselage. I've just slipped in form at F6. I'm just going to run some, actually it's a little bit high there, just going to run some super glue in. I must say actually putting the guidelines on the inside of the fuselage, I mean we do it anyway with a pencil marking it off from the plan, but having them already there is a luxury. Rattling along now, I quite like the look of that, quite stylish. I mean you don't have to cover the back end at all really if you didn't want to. F8. This is partly why I've avoided using a built-up fuselage on these, because it just takes so much more time. Pleasurable time, mind you, don't get me wrong. While this half has been drying, this fuselage, I've been just putting the wing half together as a starboard wing. Okay, so that just leaves F1, which I guess actually should be plywood, because it's got to take the motor out, possibly. I can always put a piece of ply on the outside of that. So I think I'm just going to put that in. And I'll say guys that this is complete. If I could let it go. There we are. One fuselage. I think maybe I'll put a hatch on the top for ease. So I'm going to, at least back to there, sheet it in. I've got some 1/32 bolts, so I'll use that. Keep the weight down. Okay, see you soon. I've got some 1/32 balls here, medium to hard, so it'll take a little bit of a bash, but I'm going to fix it to the bottom sheeting and just far enough back to the behind the rear wing, I think. Rear wing, behind the wing. What have we got here? We got a bit there, up to about that corner there. Turn it around. Just about there, and that'll go from there to there, and then from there to there. And put that about there, like that. Again, I've left it over length so as I can trim it to precision. This, before I cover it in, I'll just show you this. I put two paired up a couple of 1/16 gussets just behind the 3A where the undercarriage is going to go in front, just to give that a little bit of strength from any landing shocks that it might encounter. This will all sand in lovely and smooth and box it off lovely. It might be useful to have one complete hatch, or this bit here will probably want to be fixed, and then say from there forward could be a little hatch that comes off. See, if you're not building a scale aeroplane, you can sort of make it up as you go along. However you like. So that will go to there, that will go there like that. I'm just going to put up another starboard wing, but I need another kit of parts. So I've just started off the Algo laser, cutting me out a new set of ribs. I've done one and just slotted it into the fuselage. I'm wondering, should I have the bottom wing a little bit shorter than the top wings? Should I make the wingtips bent up as per all the other Yoyo designs, or leave it flat and maybe just have the top ones bent up? Proportionally it looks about right about there, with one of the panels removed. I think that could work. What I'm doing now then, I've got 4 wings. I actually can make a wing in half an hour, which isn't too bad. Timed myself yesterday, the last wing I made was just under 30 minutes. Just taking down a little bit more with the plane. For those that don't know, it's called a David plane because it's made by David. And then I start working on get yourself a decent sanding stick, make one up. You need a long one. You need a long one to do like this when you get down a bit more, to get everything completely level. I work my way along like this, just holding the rib where it joins the leading edge. If you're enjoying the video, hit the subscribe button, and if you're not subscribed, of course, and if you want to give it a thumbs up, even better. Alright, I'll be back soon when I've got a bit more done. Thanks for looking in, guys. Cheers. Right then, guys, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that's a lot of wing for a small fuselage. So what I'm thinking of doing is just reduce the lower wing by 1, maybe 2 panels. Really, I need to keep the ribs above each other to make fitting the struts easier. I'm wondering if I could fit something temporary so I can unplug the top wing and fly it as a monoplane as well. It's going to be a little bit tricky to work out. It would be neat to try it with a smaller wingspan. It'd be a little bit quicker. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do then, let's look on this one, I'm going to have to remove this rib and put it here. And then if I do that, all the ribs are going to line up above and below. I've just drawn a cabane strut and that will fit into the fuselage. If I can show you that. So the cabane strut will fit there into the fuselage. That's the center cabane. I thought the wing can just sit on the top and be held on with a pair of rubber bands. And I'm going to work out the outer struts in a minute, but I just want to get these cut. So I'm cutting it out of 1/16 plywood. I've transferred it to the laser. Let's go and have a look at it. So it's just cutting out the center part there. Here's the first one I've cut out. It's sitting in there supporting the wing, which I think looks really delicate and nice actually. I've been pondering this all day actually. I'll have to put something here, with a sheet in on the centre section, just so this rubber band doesn't cut into the covering, which it will do of course. So I'll cut out these two, and then I'll have me centre cabanes. I think they look suitably delicate. Quite pleased with those. I've just cut out a outer strut, guys, and I've got to say, using CAD and laser, it brings in a degree of accuracy I've never really known before. Look at that, it's just sitting there on its own. It's a perfect fit. So what I plan to do is to have the lower wing flat. The upper wing I'm going to bend up at the angle as it's designed. And these struts are actually going to go in this section. And I'm going to put a secondary rib the other side of this, so as I can just slot it in, and basically the top wing's going to be removable. So the central cabane, I'm going to have a rubber band from front to back just to hold that on, and these will just slot into place. But look at that, I've just cut that out of cardboard actually just to test the fit, but that's just stunning. It's beautiful. Really happy with that. Look at that. Really, it's taken a lot of thinking actually. You don't want to know this, I've got COVID at the moment. Your brain doesn't work, so it's just taken me 2 days to figure this out. But just thinking about it, I think that looks, and it looks right, doesn't it? Let's try and get a bit of an overview going there, you know, proportionally. Oh, there is one thing I do have to do, and that's print out a bigger tailplane, bigger than the original mini yo-yo, which is that one there, which is the same as that one there, but not as big as the big yo-yo. So I've just got more wing area to contend with, to give it a bit of a balancing effect. Yeah, I think that's looking very smart. Cheers, guys. Here's a little mock-up then, guys, with the struts are made, and I've got little squares at the tops to stop the outer struts from poking through, and I've got similar little squares on underneath which you can't see to stop it dropping through. Rubber bands will go over the top of the wing, so I put 1/16 square stringers there to stop the bands from like cutting into the covering, and it sort of holds itself all in, so the struts just push in between double ribs, and it should just fly as a monoplane as well. I've just got to bend these wing tips up. They're still to be bent up. As you can see, there's a join, and that peg isn't actually part of the plane, by the way, in case somebody notices and says. In broad daylight, guys. Next thing to do, I think, is to put a tailplane and fin together, and on the strength for that, I printed out a tailplane and fin. We can't see, it's reflecting. So that's a little bit bigger than the standard yo-yo because I've got the extra wing, so it needs to have a little bit more area. It's not that much bigger, so probably 15%. So when I fly it, or try it anyway without the top wing on, just as a monoplane, it won't be too large, because don't forget I have made this wing slightly smaller in span, as you can see, look, just 1.5 bays. So let's just get on with the setting out of these, and I've just got to strip up some 1/8. This is all 1/8 or 1/16, and put it together. There we are. That's the fin and rudder made, and I'll make it in one piece, and then I'll just cut through the bent piece. Okay, so when you steam it, you hold it roughly in place and come back and get it pinned down as quickly as possible, and just put some pins here and there just to keep it into the shape you want while it dries. As I can't make up the elevators, I've just left them drying, so when I unpin it all, I've got the curved pieces all ready just to glue together. Ta-da! Okay, I'm going to cut this bit now. I should have just enough space. Considering this table's 6 foot long, you always end up with a little area the size of a shoebox. I've got a bit of 16th here I might use. What was that bit? I might use that actually. Bit of 1/32. It's only got to act as a... See, by using 1/32 instead of 16th, I've immediately halved the weight. I think that's gonna... I like the open framework, as long as you don't pick it up in a clumsy way. I suppose being this bit here is where you're going to maybe hand launch it if you go into. Might be prudent just to put say a little bit of 1/8 cross brace across inside. Might be an idea. And this bit, I don't know if you've seen this, the central cabane, it slides out like that. I've got little grooves I put in either side, little pieces of wood in the corner, so they'll just slide in and reach the bottom. I've extended them down, so I made originally I made them just cut across like that, but I've remade them with the angle going down, so as I push them all the way down till it hits the top of F3, I think it is, and it holds them pretty much in the exact position both sides, so I can just pull those out when it comes time to fly it as a monoplane. Now the thing is, you end up with lots of bits of equipment which just end up in a drawer. When you look through your drawer, you realise you've got several you realise you've got several sets of airborne components that just get shoved in the drawer. So it's always worth looking through that drawer, because my drawer's a bit of a mess, surprise surprise, and I've got no order to it. I ought to have a separate compartment for the various components, but I'm slowly using them up with all these yo-yo designs anyway. Okay, just want to say a quick thank you to all my channel members who pay me a monthly subscription fee. It really does help to buy all this stuff, especially balsa wood and plywood. Yeah, so a sincere thank you to all of you guys and gals who generously dip your hands into your pocket every month to help the channel grow and survive, basically. Cheers, guys. As you can see, I've painted all the components using just ordinary household emulsion watered down. The reason I've done that is because I'm putting the covering on, and when I turn it over I want to be able to see coloured balsa instead of plain balsa, and it gives it a sort of a finish. Now you'll notice that I've already hinged the control surfaces. This is because when I cover it, it's only going to be covered. Let me give you an example. I've painted the wings as well. When I cover it, I shall cut around the edge and then just cut through the middle and tuck it in a little bit, and that'll be covered. It's not a big job. I've cut the slots for the control horns in both the rudder and the elevator because I can't cover it with that. They're both stuck in. I've used fishing line hinges, 0.4 millimeter, pardon me, 0.4 millimeter fishing line. There's one I cut earlier. You rough it up with sandpaper first, just draw it through the sandpaper, and it helps the CA stick to it really well. And when you cut it at the required length, cut it at an angle, not blunt, because if you cut it blunt, it gets like a shoulder around it and you can't push it in the pinhole you've made. So cut it at an angle and that works great. Here somewhere. That's the lower wing. Again, I'm only going to be covering the top surface, and it's going to be green underneath, or greenish anyway. I'm going to cover it with an apron, disposable apron, in this case green, and that's going to go on there. I'm going to stick it on with contact glue, 3M77 contact spray. A few creases in it, don't worry about the creases, you can't get them out, and
they add character. Now I've got some blue. I was going to cover the fuselage completely, but do you know what? I quite like that. It seems to be quite strong. So what I'm going to do is to leave it completely open. My radio gear sorted out as well. Let me show you that. I have in fact got an E-flite. This is a 180, I think, phase, brushless. It's got a nice brushless motor. I found an extension in my box of bits. So now what I'm thinking is that this, I made a hole in F4 here. This can sit in the fuselage there, forward a bit, so as help with the CG. The battery can sit either in this front compartment or there. Plenty of space for that. And the motor I'm going to mount inside the fuselage. When I get the extension, I'll know exactly where, in there, and then that will plug into there. So all in all, very simple radio install. And this is going to be a 2S battery. I'll show you that one here. 300 milliamp hour battery, 2S. That'll either sit in there, plenty of room, or there if it's nose heavy, or even further back if I want. So there we are. I'm going to start the covering process, and now I've hinged the tail feathers, I might start with those. The technique is to give it a light spray, and it's a good idea just to spray around the edge as well, because I'm going to be sticking it around the edge. You could, if you wanted, I'll obviously cut this down. You could, if you wanted, there's two techniques. You either put this down on your board, you can stretch it out tight with tape, which isn't a bad idea, masking tape, or you just sort of flop it on gently. But the problem with that is it is contact glue, so you're not going to be able to pull it or stretch it or unstick it or anything. So I'll probably go for the lower it onto the thing, but that will be in a minute, and you can see how I get on. Cheers guys. Fun, isn't it? Fun, fun, fun. Tape some down, got most of the creases out of it, so I'm just going to go and spray this up and then just lay it down. Here we go. It's just going to lay on there. This doesn't have to be an absolutely perfect finish, because a sharp knife by the way is imperative, because they fly so slowly it doesn't make a lot of difference, and it looks good in the air. So anyway, so I'll cut it flush into there. You get overspray on the structure, but don't worry about it, because it sort of dries with time. There we are. I've got to cut a V shape in this to stick, and I've got to cut the slot out here for the control horn, which is easily done, just like that. Now to get that marked up for the what needs to come off there, I'll pop that on there and just probably cut it against the fuselage side, but here we are. Not quite finished, because I've got to separate the tailplane from the elevator. Getting ahead of myself there. It's a shame I have to do it really, but whilst the tailplane will come up, elevator will come up, it won't go down because of it's stretched tight. So we have to separate it, and there's a fishing line hinge there, and there's one there. I've only got 3 hinges in this entire control surface, because you don't need much. we are. Stretching a little bit over that hinge, didn't quite cut through. On there, on there. There we are. If you don't have too many hinges in there, it makes it a lot freer to move. If you find that it's too stiff, you can always just cut through one of the hinges or two of the hinges, and that will make it a little less resistant to bending. Right, that's the fin and rudder covered and the horn in, and I've just glued the tailplane into the tailplane into the fuselage, and that's drying nicely now. So, but if that had glue on it, if I could just lay it down, good idea to lick your fingers to give some traction. Right, I've been practicing, guys. I'm going to go out and spray the wing in a minute, but what I'm going to try and do is just sort of that. And I've done that about 50 times now just to get it, but I mean it's going to be all sticky, but this is about how I'm going to do it. Not too high, not too low, mustn't pull it one corner or the other, just a gentle over, not too high, just a gentle, and then that. Hopefully not that, because it'll something like that. So it won't go that well, I'm sure, but you've got to try. So I'll just nip outside and spray this. I'll be right back. Oh. Not too bad. Small wrinkle there. Hey, tell you what, most of that practice paid off, I think. Okay. Now you've got to be careful not to pick it up on the edges, because you'll stick it down prematurely before you've had chance. Like I can't put it down on the back edge because it'll stick down and it might wrinkle, so I want to put it down in a controlled fashion like that. I'll work those out when the time comes, which isn't now. So there's one wing done, guys. All right, let's see what it looks like on the fuselage before I get on with the rest of it. I can't resist doing this, actually. Look at that. That's looking great. I love the colour, actually. I think the blue goes really nice with the green. There we go, guys. So I'm going to do all the other panels, and then we'll come back and start working out. Probably I'll have to get the radio gear in. Now I've got the control surfaces made, I'll stick the rudder on in a minute, and that can be drying, fin, beg your pardon, and then I can get the control surfaces connected up and working. Once that's done, then I'll start looking at the wings. In fact, before I put the wings on, I want to make an undercarriage as well. So guys, there we are. That's all of the wing panels covered. Went pretty well. So it's just a matter now of gluing these together, gluing the tips on there, getting the radio gear in and make the undercarriage and the tail skid, the hatches. Apart from all that though, it's finished. So I glued the lower wing halves together and just glued on the fin and rudder. So I've just stuck in the servo board with that's incredibly sticky double-sided tape, and I'm just cutting the push rod's length now. I've put a little fitting on this end and a little fitting on that end, so it's just a matter of getting the length, and then I'm just going to put some heat shrink tubing between the, just to hold it all together, right there. The push rod is quite heavy actually. It's 2mm probably carbon rod. That seems really ridiculously hard to break. Notice how I'm not really touching the cut parts until I got the carbon off, because the carbon's not very nice. Not very nice stuff to get in any wounds or anything like that, so we'll dispose of that. The control horn is on the elevator, is on the top, so the servo's pulling as opposed to pushing. If it's pushing and the push rod does buckle, it won't matter so much, but if it buckles to pull up, then you've got a problem. And this just fits in there like that through the holes, and then I'll cut some, where are we, come on, about there, yeah. Now I'm going to cut some heat shrink tubing, and with the heat shrink tubing I'm going to have to shrink it down. Sometimes I could take off these clips again and heat shrink it on. I probably will, because it gets a bit clear. What I'm going to use is soldering iron just to melt the or shrink the heat shrink. So it's probably better if I take the fittings off the back. Tweezers. There we are. So there's one there. It's just a very fine piece of wire bent like that, and then this part holds it against the horn. It makes it easy to unclip. That's one from a kit, but the other one I made up, the other side's identical. It's about 2 centimeters long, if you want to make your own up. That's thin. This blue will do nicely for there, so let's cut that in half. Then we'll put that in there, put that through there, like that. Shrink's a marvellous thing, isn't it? Go cold. Right, I normally put a little piece of a blob of CA just to hold it as well as a backup, but for the minute I'm going to leave it, because if I need to push it fore and aft, there's usually a little bit of movement in it. It's a little bit reluctant there. Let's do the same with that one. Okay, now I reconnect it, slide it back through. So we need a piece of heat shrink over there. Again, I'm going to might use the, I don't know, yes, use black I think this time. So what you do is you slide that over there, and using the tweezers you pick that one up, slide that in as well. Hopefully there's room for it. Slide that up. So that's, let's get that out of the way. That's one joined, it's slid up. All I have to do is get the rudder central, and once I'm happy I can just apply a little bit of heat on that, and that will be connected up. There we go. Okay, that's a very nice neat little installation in there. So let's just get that elevator neutral. about there, a bit more, and the rudder pretty much there. Okay, so let's see if this is heated up enough to feels warm. Just melt that a little bit on each side, and there. Okay, tail skid in. And I'm just going to have a look at this undercarriage. Right, so I have to bind it to this piece of wood. It's a little bit on the wide side there. That wasn't a very good guess. Let's make it a little bit smaller. I'll start off with the axle. I'll trim it to length in a minute. So we go like that. Put that out of the way a minute. A bit too much. About bend that forward to about there, and then that will give me sufficient rake. So I'm going to glue and stitch that onto there. Just drill a few little small holes, bind it up, and then drill a hole and cut a slot in the bottom of the fuselage just to slide it up in. And then I'm going to cut some fairings. Well, in fact, I'm going to cut some fairings first. Looks like it's holding. Right, going to get needle and thread and stitch that to that. I've stuck on some fairings and sewn on some. By the way, a little tip for you: if you're sewing things, don't just sew one piece of cotton round and round. I double it up and double it again, so one turn gives me eight threads of cotton. So it doesn't take long to put all that in. So anyway, I've got some little washers I've cut out on the laser, which will go either side of the wheel. But I also need, I'll probably sleeve the wheel actually with a little bit of plastic. But I just got to find a tyre that'll go on these now. Yeah, that one. Okay, this is my selection of O-rings. Excellent. The O-rings have got grease on them, so they don't CA too well. So I like to wipe the grease off, and I might even just wash them with IPA. Slip them over. I have gone round the periphery of the wheel. That's not a round file. Anyway, with a round file just between my fingers, just to give it a little recess for it to sit into. That looks like a very smart wheel now. A little bit, there we go, loose-ish. The CA does make a little bit of a mess, but I'm going to keep that to the inside. So they're a little bit wobbly. They're applied, nothing's going to happen, but it's good to sleeve them, isn't it? Painted them blue just with a blue felt tip pen. These little plywood washers, by the way, are a tight fit on the 1mm axle. So what I do, I push them on, put the wheel on and put one either side, and then put a little drop of CA either side, and they've got to be a tight fit, otherwise it'll seep through and glue your axle to the bearing, which won't do. Okay, the object here is not to get any in the axle, but just to keep that wheel as centered as I can within reason. Just by turning. Okay, it's not too bad. So I'll put a bit more on now, and that will be that one done. So now those washers are a tight fit, so I can safely glue them on without it interfering. Okay, next step is to make a slot in the bottom of the fuselage to accept the undercarriage. And the easiest way to do that is to mark where it's got to be cut from the inside out. It should have come through, and there we are, from there to there. I've got to leave a little gap because of the stitching. So I'm going to take out about 3mm, 1/8 of an inch. That's better. So that's going to glue on there like that. Here's a piece of 0.4mm plywood, which is, look at that, the perfect length, and it's already curved. Wonder, I was just thinking it could be the full width, and I just slide it in sideways and clunk it, and then notch it where the cabanes are. Now I did notice before that the band was pulling the cabane sideways, so whether I need to put a little spacer between the rear end of the cabane or even attach it to the wing. Could attach a little piece of balsa to the wing to keep it in place. The lower wing I have had in already to make sure it fits in, but that slides in like this. This wing's going to be permanently fitted as soon as I've got the control surfaces fixed up. Oh wait, Cliff, you have. Alright, Anna's got the undercarriage in. Oh wait, Cliff, you have. Okay, so we're getting very close to gluing that lower wing in. And then the cabanes, the outer of the struts will fit between the wings. But what I'm wondering is that this lower wing will probably need a pair of struts going down from the fuselage down. And if the lower wing is braced up, well then that will transfer through the struts to the top wing. I'm making some struts, guys, just taking it down to this part of the wing. I don't want it to look too incongruous, but it should still support enough. It's 1/8 balsa, fairly hard, just taking the edges off to round it up a little bit, and I've cut a little bit of covering front and back and just beveled the edges, keep working it, bevel it, work it, and so this now comes in here and that one at the front comes in. I'm just going to sort of butt them together and CA them in place. I did think about keying this into the fuselage, but there's no point, to be honest. It's stuck pretty well. Okay, there we are. That's the struts just about done. The little plastic mount that comes with this motor, so I sort of made one up. Got a piece of aluminium tube with a nut and bolt through, and I've cut a couple of ply plates, which when I get the prop adapter tomorrow, I'll know exactly where to glue that into the nose. So that's ready to go in. It's getting close. Good one. That one goes in there. Presses down till it's flush front and back. Port one does the same. I couldn't have cut these out by hand. These are cut out on my Algo Delta laser cutter, 1/16 ply. And there, this is how you convert a monoplane into a biplane. All I want to do is get a nice test fly of each, and I should be really happy. Okay, the top wing is covered, so that sits on there, and like that. And I've just realised I made a terrible mistake, because I've got a decent amount of dihedral in the top wing and not a lot in the bottom wing. Because the bottom wing isn't going to pull up because the struts are in now. But it looks pretty true. It's under, so you can see it's under stress because it's pulled the cover in tight. Look. I'm thinking I could saw through the top fittings of the struts to allow it to come up, and that will be absolutely flush, and then I can re-glue them. That might be the easiest way. So obviously I can't saw into the bottom struts. Yeah, okay guys, let me do a little bit of remedial work. This is what happens when you're building prototypes. You've got to do little bits of remedial work. The question is, how much shall I cut off there? If I don't cut off enough, it won't come up enough. The only other way is to cut it flush and then actually move those struts up so they pull the wing up a bit. And it might be easier to cut them upside down, so I'm going to try that. I'll probably need to paint the fuselage in a little bit. It's bound to scratch it a little bit. Of course, this bolstwood now is toughened with the CA on it. Just work my way gently up here, guys. I'll be back in a minute. There we go. That went really nicely. Put a bit of paper on there to protect the bodywork. That worked well. So now, if we lift, that's actually jumped up a little bit, which is a good sign. Fortunately, it was lower than it needed to be, so there we go. That's higher than it was. And I've got my dihedral back in the wing. Okay, that's going to work, guys. I'm going to cut the other side. That was an easy fix, wasn't it? Put the paper, protect the bodywork, and away we go. Side's a bit easier because I'm right-handed and I've got better access. Halfway through. There we go. This aeroplane is possibly my greatest achievement. That looks really square, actually. Very nice. Let's look at these struts again. Just looking at this pulling in, does kind of like annoy me a little bit. I could put a spacer attached to the leading and trailing edge. How about something like this? 3/16 square. If I glue this to the trailing edge underneath, and that'll act as a spacer that will come off with the wing. I'll put a little block of wood on the leading edge underneath, that holds that the correct distance, and a little block of wood on the trailing edge there, that comes off with the wing, holds it there. Just got to paint it in. I've re-glued the struts onto the body. They're higher than they were before, so they obviously needed adjustment. And oh yeah, I've just took a little bit off the back of the tail of that strut and a little bit off the front of that, and it's allowed it to move very slightly just to bring, and now the wings are all parallel and straight. So the wings are done. So all that's left now to do really is this top hatch and fit the motor. Oh, and pilot. Cabane struts, okay. So that one now, I'll just show you how this fits as well, actually, while the wings off. It just goes in like that. Comes in at the front, little tickle, and a clip. She's down. Top wing goes like that, and the rubber band, I'll just put it on diagonally. I'll put it on diagonally to start, because then that means I've got an equal amount of band either side of the center line, as it were. That one goes, oops, that one goes round on there, like that. And then the struts just kiss into the, let's put this side in, port, clip, on there, and on there.
It's reasonably tight. Well, you can see it taking shape now. I decided to paint the hatch green just for some sort of variety, really. Props on. Yeah, let's just put the other strut in. As far as I know, the CG on a biplane is worked out by drawing a line from the leading edge of the top wing to the trailing edge of the bottom wing, or you could hold a rule in there, say there. And then a third of the way along that rule is where your CG would be, which that's 8.5 inches. So a third of 8.5 is 2 3/4, 6 inches, which is in fact pretty much, let's just get that around, just behind the leading edge of the lower wing. So let's just lift it up there. As you can see, it's tail heavy, so we pop some lead in there next to the battery. It's very nearly there. Yeah, it's about there. So it's actually gonna, when I put it as a biplane, when I put the battery in, I have to put in this 15 grams of lead. So I'll just slide in next to the battery. There's plenty of room. Let's just hatch out again for a minute. So the hatch goes in there, turns, clips in the front like that, snap shut at the back. So I've got to go now and make a pilot, and she's done. Yeah, she's ready to go, all bar the pilot and suitable weather conditions. But as a monoplane she looks pretty cool, and as a biplane she looks even cooler. No, I'm not going to do a triplane. So as usual guys, thank you very much for following along on this build, and if you have enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'm approaching 7,000 now, and that's a pretty big number. So anyway, watch out for the maiden flight. It'll be probably a few weeks, 3 weeks possibly, because, well, 3 weeks from the day of recording, because I've got to wait for the next indoor session down at Wynnard's Perch, unless I can find time to get into the local flying thing, but it always happens when I'm working. So that aside, it will be coming, unless I have a really still day. You never know your luck. The next fortnight is 30-mile-an-hour winds and gales and sort of stuff, so it's unlikely, but you never know your luck, I suppose. But really pleased with that. Looks great, looks charming. I'm really happy with her, and it's going to look fine hanging up with all my other yo-yos. So this is the mini Yoyo Sportster biplane, convertible to Sportster monoplane. The difference in the monoplane version, the difference is it's slightly less wingspan. Well, you can see how much less. About probably, what's that, 10 centimeters less wingspan. So the wing loading is going to be a little bit higher, and therefore she'll fly a little faster. That's why I've still got the struts there. Well, it needs the struts anyway to support the wing, because it hasn't got a main spar. And because it's a built-up fuselage over the other mini Yoyo Sportstar, which is a profile fuselage. Did I say Sportstar? Sports, that's a good name. Whereas this one's built up. I'm glad I took the bolster out the sides, because it's all weight that you don't need in the tail. But otherwise it's ready to go. Really looking forward to it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the maiden video for that one. If not, check out my other videos, which are uploading and making all the time. This boy can waffle. Cheers guys, bye.